A tender moment between newly dating Worf and Deanna is interrupted when Picard reveals that he is, for unknown reasons, traveling backward and forward through time. Moving back and forth between 3 different time periods, the past, the present, and the future, Picard is on a time-twisting adventure to save all of humanity from a massive temporal anomaly that grows larger the further back in time it goes, eventually disrupting the very beginnings of life on Earth. 7 years earlier, at the very beginning of the TNG television series, Picard must deal with a crew that doesn't yet trust him, alarmed by his seemingly erratic behavior. 25 years in the future, an elderly Picard suffers from Irremotic syndrome, a degenerative neural condition that makes it difficult for his former crew to believe his wild tales of time travel. In the future time frame, Picard enlists the aid of his ex-wife, Captain Beverly Picard, in traveling to the Devron system in the former Romulan neutral zone, the site of the temporal anomaly in the other 2 time periods. Finding nothing there, they employ an inverse tachyon pulse from the USS Pasteur's main deflector to investigate the region, giving them the ability to scan beyond the subspace barrier. However, their attempts to find the anomaly are cut short when 2 Klingon starships arrive and engage the Pasteur. Just as the ship is about to be destroyed, a new arrival decloaks. It is the USS Enterprise under the command of Admiral Riker, who had earlier refused to give aid to Picard in his attempt to get to the Devron system. The Pasteur is destroyed, and the Enterprise heads back to Federation space at Warp 13. In both the present and past time frames, Picard orders the Enterprise to scan the anomaly using their own inverse tachyon pulses in an attempt to learn more about it. Finding himself back in the post-apocalyptic courtroom created by Q from Encounter at Farpoint, Picard learns from Q that the trial that began the Enterprise D's mission never ended. Humanity has been found guilty of being inferior by the Q continuum. The sentence, the end of all mankind. Q reveals that Captain Picard himself will ultimately be the instrument of humanity's destruction, and that Q is the one responsible for Picard's time jumps. Eventually, thanks to the insights gained from his movement between the 3 time periods and some hints from Q, Picard discovers that his own attempts to investigate the anomaly using the tachyon pulses have led to the anomaly's creation due to the convergence of the pulses from all 3 time periods at the center of the anomaly. Eventually, he must get the crews of 3 Enterprises from 3 different time periods to work together to collapse the anomaly in order to save humanity. With the sacrifice of all 3 Enterprises in this endeavor, the anomaly is successfully collapsed, and Q returns Picard to the present, leaving him as the only person with memories of what has occurred. As the curtain closes on Star Trek The Next Generation, Captain Picard joins Riker's weekly poker game with the rest of the senior staff for the first time. He deals a game of 5-card stud, nothing wild, and the sky's the limit, as the Enterprise flies off, destined for further adventures with her intrepid crew. The spring of 1994 was a crazy time to be a Star Trek fan. The fanfare surrounding the end of the Star Trek The Next Generation series was something that I hadn't expected. As a young Trek fan at the time, I'd often felt very alone in my fandom. It always felt like I was the only one in my friend group who enjoyed Star Trek, apart from 1 or 2 people here and there over the years. So to see the sheer mayhem that surrounded the end of TNG blew my mind. In Toronto, the Sky Dome, now known as the Rogers Centre, was filled with Star Trek fans eager to share the experience of the series finale together. An entire stadium of Star Trek fans cheering for one of my all-time favorite shows, it still boggles my mind. So setting all the hoopla aside, how was the actual episode? Well, unlike many series finales I could name, All Good Things turned out to be the perfect capper to one of my favorite series. The callbacks to the early days of the Enterprise D were a lot of fun, and of course, whenever Star Trek does a glimpse ahead to a possible future, I always really enjoy it. The story itself is a fascinating one, as Picard must slowly piece together all of the clues that lead him to discover the nature of the temporal anomaly. We learn that it is an eruption between time and anti-time, which, in the pantheon of great Star Trek technobabble, ranks extremely high. It's all nonsense, of course, but nonsense in the best tradition of Star Trek. The scientific mystery acts mostly as a backdrop to the real meat of the episode, the character drama. In the past, Picard must operate in secrecy for fear of contaminating the timeline with foreknowledge of what is to come. His seemingly erratic behavior is off-putting to this new crew, who haven't had the years to get to know him. If there's one part of the story that's weaker than the rest, I would say that it is the ease with which Picard convinces the past crew to go along with the attempt to collapse the anomaly at the end of the episode. We get a fairly rousing Picard speech in which he claims to know that the people he commands are the finest crew in the fleet, but if I'm being honest, that falls a bit flat when you think about the fact that these people only met him a few days earlier. Still, it's fun to see our characters in the past, including Tasha Yar, although several are missing due to the circumstances surrounding the first episode of TNG. LaForge, Crusher, and Riker are all absent, with a brief exception for Riker, who makes a short appearance thanks to footage repurposed from the first season episode The Arsenal of Freedom. In the future timeline, Picard finds himself similarly disbelieved by his friends and former colleagues. Because he is suffering from a degenerative neural condition, his stories of time travel and the destruction of humanity can be chalked up to a sort of dementia. However, our characters show their complete loyalty to Picard when they go along with his plans anyway, until it is finally apparent that his experiences are actually happening to him. I love the thought that went into the relationships between the characters and how they have changed and evolved over the years. The one exception that still doesn't sit completely right with me is the revelation that Deanna Troi has died in the intervening years, leading to a rift between Riker and Worf. It felt a bit like her death was just to serve their stories, and I probably would have preferred a little more focus on Deanna herself. However, even taking into consideration these very small quibbles, All Good Things is definitely a winner. After 7 years, the actors have their characters down perfectly. The writing is top-notch, and the direction by Winrich Kolbe is, to my eye, flawless. This episode remains one of the best of Star Trek The Next Generation, and one of the top episodes of the entire franchise. In fact, as of this writing, All Good Things remains my absolute favorite series finale, in or out of the Star Trek universe. The familiar faces brought back for the finale were very welcome. From some of the less prominent recurring characters, such as Admiral Nakamura and the Romulan Commander Tomalak, played by the incomparable Andreas Katsulas, whom fans may know from his role of Jakar in Babylon 5, to bigger names like Denise Crosby as Tasha Yar, and taking a return trip to the Enterprise from his current job over on Deep Space Nine, Cole Meany returns as O'Brien. And of course, John Delancey puts in his best performance in the franchise as Q. From the courtroom scene where he seems to taunt Picard while also nudging him in the right direction, to his final scene with Picard when the truth of Q's assistance is laid bare, the character is in top form here. Speaking of Q, his final moments in this episode make this scene one of my favorites in all of Star Trek. The revelation to Picard that the journey he is on goes beyond the simple tasks of mapping stars and studying spatial phenomena feeds into the larger message of Star Trek, that the voyages our heroes embark on are ultimately explorations of the human condition. The tantalizing tease that Q gives Picard when he seems poised to let him in on some great universal truth is fun when he changes his mind and trusts Picard to one day find that out for himself. In the present timeline, Dr. Crusher scans Picard's temporal lobe and determines that he truly has been time traveling due to his acquisition of 2 days' worth of memories in a matter of minutes. In the future time frame, everyone is skeptical of Picard's story. Why not have the same type of scan performed to eliminate all doubt? For the most part, the producers of this episode did an excellent job of recreating the world of Season 1 of The Next Generation for the portions of the episode that take place in the past. However, there were a few small inconsistencies that didn't quite match up exactly. For instance, the armrests on Picard's chair are the latter season version and not the same as what was seen in Season 1 originally. Other small issues, such as the different looks of the characters due to age and makeup changes, are easily overlooked, but there was one mistake that caught my eye. Throughout Star Trek The Next Generation, beginning with Encounter at Farpoint, Data's rank has always been Lieutenant Commander. He is the only character whose rank never changed throughout the series, and even during the TNG films. However, when we see him here in the past time frame, the costumers have mistakenly given him the rank of Lieutenant Junior Grade. He's missing a whole pip, and given that Data doesn't eat, we can't even chalk up his later rank to the presence of street corn. There is one major nit in the episode that, if it were to be addressed, would likely break the story somewhat. It's established that the anti-time anomaly was created when the Pasteur used the inverse tachyon pulse in the Devron system. From there, it grows larger as it travels back in time so that it is massive in the distant past. If we accept that as the case, then the events in the future time frame don't make much sense. When the Pasteur first arrives in the Devron system, there should be a tiny temporal anomaly that disappears once they start scanning it with the tachyon beam. Instead, there is no anomaly there, and when they return a few hours later in the Enterprise, a small anomaly has begun to form. Based on the dialogue in the episode, this shouldn't be. A possible explanation is that it grows larger both forward and backward in time, but the episode doesn't mention this as a possibility. In the future time frame, Geordi LaForge speaks about his wife, Leah. This is likely Leah Brahms, seen in the TNG episodes Booby Trap and Galaxy's Child. He also talks about his children, Brett, Alandra, and Sydney. Both Alandra and Sydney LaForge were seen in the main timeline in the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. Part of the pretense of taking a medical ship into the former neutral zone is to provide relief efforts for Romulus, which is currently experiencing an outbreak of Turelian plague. You may remember that particular disease from Season 1 of The Next Generation. Turelian plague was a highly contagious and deadly malady that almost completely wiped out the Turelian species. In the episode Haven, Wyatt Miller boards a Turelian plague ship to work on creating a cure. Unfortunately, given that it still exists in this time frame, it seems he may have had limited success. All Good Things gives us the first appearance of the uniforms we see in the future time frame. These uniforms would be seen again in the Deep Space Nine episode The Visitor and the Voyager finale Endgame. This particular style of comm badge would also appear in Star Trek Prodigy, having become the standard Starfleet comm badge introduced in the mid-2380s. Finally, we learn that in the future, Worf has become the governor of the Klingon colony of Hatoria. In the Star Trek Discovery premiere episode, The Vulcan Hello, Sarek mentions Hatoria as the site of first contact between the Vulcans and Klingons. Series finales must be one of the most difficult things to do well in Hollywood. A truly great series can be almost completely undone by an unsatisfying final episode. Over the years, we've seen many examples of this, arguably including Battlestar Galactica, Lost, and of course, Game of Thrones. However, in the case of Star Trek The Next Generation, the writers, director, and actors hit all of their marks perfectly. When an episode of television is this good, the small nitpicks with the logic of the story are easily dismissed. All Good Things remains my all-time favorite series finale and among the top episodes in all of Star Trek. 5 stars out of 5.
Q's interest in you has always been very similar to that of a master and his beloved pet.
That was only an analogy, Captain. That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
I should have done this a long time ago.
You were always welcome.